Here, on that little corner. Up. What happened?
I don't know.
We got hung up.
Said avoid little snags by telling people they're being recorded.
Did it?
We got you don't have the my camera's off.
Oh, your camera's off? Oh, okay. I was gonna say we weren't getting you now.
My camera turned off.
He has to turn his camera back on.
You gotta turn your camera back on.
Here, let me work this other side. Where's your phone? Because we can Facebook Live this too. You want to try to do that?
I'm done with this. You want to try to do it? Go ahead. I don't care now. I just want to get it. Oh, there you go. Now you're back.
I'm back.
Yeah, you're back.
All right.
We're doing a video recording of you too while we talk.
Okay.
And audio recording started recording. Aaron's trying to get to the
Facebook Live.
Facebook Live, although I don't care if you can do it. Go for it.
We're Facebook Live.
That's what he's trying to do. That's how we started on this evening. We've done this before, where we Facebook Live while we do a show.
Try to add a description.
So we're going live on Facebook.
So
You got my picture?
yeah, I got you. How's Danny doing? Doing okay?
Danny's doing fine. As a matter of fact, it just came out today, Riverfront Times. I picked up a copy of it.
Oh, is that today? I was going to ask you about that. I think there was another article coming out.
Yes, that's today. Let me get a copy of that.
I'm just gonna say with.
It's going to be about our boy,
Talking Whitey Bulger.
the Fox. No.
No.
Can you see that?
Yeah, I say the legend of, oh yeah, Alan Barklage. It's going to be about the helicopter pilot that shot and killed the Robin Oswald.
Yes, that's what it's about. Riverfront Times.
Interesting.
It's on the web right now.
Okay, I'll look that up when I get home.
Yes, good article. I went to the barber shop and picked up a copy of it down the street.
Yeah, your recording sounded your audio sounded pretty good now. I think it's something to do with the internet, and it may not even come across on my recording.
I don't know. I don't know. Are we on Facebook right now?
No, we're not on Facebook yet. He's about to get it going now.
If I can just get your
Go to the
portrait.
pages.
I needed to be able to change from portrait. There we go. You had it locked in portrait mode, so it wouldn't flip.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Let me make sure that's.
Should just be able to.
Otherwise, it comes on Facebook
Sideways.
sideways.
Yeah, that's why I changed your settings so it would rotate.
Yeah, you got it on rotate. It's got a. Oop. Okay, now we're good.
Because I'm still going to put it in sideways to the.
All I can see of you, Gary, is a little photo in the center of the.
Yeah. You can't see me. You should be able to see me.
Not in full. No, I can't. I can't see.
What the hell? Something happened here.
I can just see.
It's on portrait.
Oh, I was on Facebook trying to do it. You're using.
Oh, there we go. Now we're going.
You were using.
Yeah, don't mess with Facebook. You got to lock it with that app.
Okay.
That's the only way it works.
I was not. Hold on.
Okay.
Type into the title.
Well, we're getting closer, Mac.
Yeah.
You still live in the same apartment down there, huh?
Yes, my screen says.
I wish I had your phone number. When I was down there the other day, I would have run over and could have ran and got some coffee or a bite to eat. I just killed time all afternoon out there at the airport Marriott.
Yes, you should have stopped in here without my phone. Whatever you should.
Yeah, I didn't have your phone before, so it's next time I get down, I'll make sure I let you know and I'll get by.
Yeah, we'll go down and get some couple of hamburgers, coffee.
Now you live just south of downtown, don't you? If I remember right.
Yes.
That's what I thought. You're close to Soul Yard. district?
Yes, I live about 5 miles from the arts, and I'm in the Solar District, and
Where is the hill from there, where all those Italian restaurants are?
I think that's about 4 or 5 miles, 6 miles from here.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, looks like we're going Facebook Live now on Gangland Wire.
Gangland
Anybody
Wire.
on there yet? They probably can't hear any of this, but they can hear me.
Keep talking.
We're getting ready to interview Martin J. McNally, our good friend, former parachuting skyjacker and expert on the federal prison system. We want to talk a little bit about how did Whitey Bulger get killed? How did they let him get in a position to where these other mob guys knew he was there, caught him alone, and then nail him?
Yes, Whitey Bulger. He was a high-profile federal rat,
Got nothing on this.
and I really think that he took a payoff. Have him sent,
Let me run a little bit of music.
I think somebody in the
I
bureau.
know I got that.
Yeah, he's already started, Aaron. I can throw the music in
Well,
later.
no, I'm just trying to get some music so that
Oh, I
I
see.
can monitor on, so I know that I'm getting whatever's going on Facebook.
Okay.
Live so they can hear. I wasn't getting anything on the headphones. I wasn't really hearing you hardly.
Okay. Is that any better? I was not really speaking into the microphone right then. That's much better there, isn't it?
Hold on.
I can hear you pretty well.
Yes, I do. Now you gotta ask everybody, can they hear? They should be able to hear you.
There you go.
I can hear you. We got music in the background.
Got it. That's good.
Now,
All right.
That's good. We're talking
all right, so that was checking the mics. This is Aaron, and we're trying to hear Gary Jenkins' mic.
Yeah, you got me there. How's
How's
that sound? That sounds good to my ears. What about you, Mac?
the sounds fantastic. Yes.
All right, good.
You got the little headphone right by there. You're on your tablet, so he can kind of hear me, hear the music.
Yeah.
I bring the music up. He's kind of low, so
I know.
maybe have him talk a little bit more. I'm going to gain him up.
All right,
while
Mac.
he's talking.
Hey, Mac. Hey, Mac. Have you ever eaten at the Hill? What's your favorite restaurant over there?
No, I don't think I ever have.
No, that's better, Aaron.
Yeah, keep having.
Keep talking, Mac. Just tell us a little bit about
I don't remember the place that he and
Danny's article or something. Just keep talking.
you and I, he went.
Danny's article came out today, and I'm still reading it. I haven't read it. Just got a copy of it. He'll give me 50 copies of it next week. Got to send a copy of that to a lot of my friends in the joint who are interested in how I'm doing out here in civil order society.
All right.
I
So,
think that is what we're gonna get, because
That's
our
good.
connections are about what.
He's loud. He's good.
They can hear him too, right?
Yeah.
Yep, all
I
right.
hope. I don't know.
What
I
ask
can't
them?
deal with anymore. Let's just start the show.
Look in the chat, they'll tell you. If they could hear me, if they could hear you, if they could hear this music, then they can probably hear Martin J. McNally. I gained him up a little bit more. Martin
All right.
can hear me.
Yeah.
I can hear you very well.
All right, well, we're gonna go on in here. Let me,
All right. Let's start over again. I think people in Facebook, if you can't hear,
Department Intelligence
they should be able to hear.
and now attorney Gary Jenkins
Right down.
produced
They should be able to hear.
documentary films, most recently Gangland Wire, creator of smartphone app entitled Kansas City Mob Tours. Download it now. If you like what you hear, go to ganglandwire.com. Navigate to the shop page. We need you to put a hit out on our donate button. Gangland Wire True Crime Stories is produced at the Big Dumb Fun Show Studio 4. And now, here's Gary Jenkins.
well, all you wiretappers out there and you people on Facebook, I don't know how much of this you've been watching. I see some people already on there. Wiretappers, we are Facebooking live this with our good friend, Martin J. McNally, talking to us via Skype. We're recording, Martin. We could put this up on YouTube. Martin, you will become a YouTube star. Maybe we'll go viral. Martin, how you doing?
Yes, we're going viral. I'm doing fine. Thank you.
Great. Oh, I forgot one thing. Say hello, Aaron.
Hello, Aaron.
All right, we got that out of the way. So,
Hello.
Martin, it's really good to talk to you. Say hello, Martin.
Say hello, Martin.
Hello, Martin.
Well, let's have Martin do this. I think we had one from before. When Martin, we sat down, spent an entire day pretty much with Martin J. McNally at his apartment in St. Louis, talking about his escapades, if you will. And I think we got a liner from him where he said, "My name's Martin McNally, or Martin J. McNally, and you're listening to Gangland Wire." But if we didn't, could we get one right now?
Yes, I'm Martin McNally, and I'm on Gangland Wire, and it's good to talk to you fellas.
Great. Mac, as we started talking before, we want to talk to you because you have 42 years of experience in the federal correctional system. Is that right? Leavenworth and Marion?
37 years flat.
47 years in two different maximum security penitentiaries.
37 years.
Oh, 37. I'm sorry. 37 years in federal correctional institutions, maximum security, both of them, Leavenworth and Marion, Illinois.
I was at Leavenworth. I was at Marion. I was at Terre Haute. I was at Atlanta. I was at Atwater in California. I've been all over the place.
Oh, wow. I didn't know you'd been to all those prisons. Great. That gives you even more experience.
Man, you want to talk about somebody who's been through a few prison transfers.
Really. We've talked to that prison guard, your old friend from Marion, and he talked about sometimes they would do diesel therapy.
Yes, they would. They would send people on diesel therapy for years.
Wow. That would be tough.
Yeah, it would be tough because you'd be in segregation all the time when you move. They do that to people that they don't like.
Right. Well, so just real quick, just folks on Facebook Live, or if you're listening to this in the podcast and you're not sure how we know Martin, has a great story. We had 7 segments, episodes put together where Martin told the story of hijacking an American airliner plane flying from St. Louis to Tulsa. So you can go out and Google search that. I ran into somebody, Martin, who said, I was listening to this interview about this guy, he hijacked a plane. And I'm like, Martin McNally? And he's like, yeah. And it turned out that it was an interview that you did with these guys out of Atlanta.
I did an interview in Atlanta. I forget who it was with, but yes, that was years ago.
It was like a telephone interview. But if you want to hear the original interview from we sat down with him, I think it was like May 16th, 2016.
Something like that. There's seven segments. I know that. We told the story in detail, or Mac told the story in detail, didn't you, Mac?
You were there for 10 hours.
I know.
So,
Drank a lot of coffee.
right, and we took him out to dinner afterwards. I'm trying to remember the name of that restaurant because that was great. I mean, that was such a day that it just goes down as one of the best days of my life in terms of getting to sit down and do a great piece of work like that with you, Martin. So now, of course, and the experience that you have that's relevant that we're talking about tonight, I guess, is being moved around the prison system.
That and about how did Whitey Bulger, how did they allow that to happen? How did they put him in that position?
I honestly think it was set up because you don't put a high-profile rat like him in a general population of a U.S. penitentiary. He was moved from I don't know where to Hazleton, and Hazleton is a major joint with a lot of people there doing life. And when he got there, they knew automatically that Whitey Bulger, he's the big rat, and he's got to be dealt with because he betrayed the mob, and he was an FBI informant for a long time. He killed a lot of people. You heard him. And so when he got there, they took care of him. But I think that was, it had to be people in the Bureau of Prisons who wanted him dead, wanted him hit. It's all it can be.
Now, at one time, the prisoners really were in charge of or handled all the record keeping. Is it still like that, you think?
Okay, no. When I came into the joint in 1973, I was at Leavenworth, and convicts controlled the records office, and there was about 20 to 25 dudes in there, all convicts. And whenever anybody would come in there, they would go over the records to see what they did and what they were doing, and if there was any collaboration with the authorities in the district courts, they would know, and word would pass to the compound, and they'd be hit. There were quite a few people that didn't last 2 or 3 days. They were in the compound, stabbed to death, and on their way, taking out a plastic bag. There were a lot of killings at Leavenworth back in 73, 4, 5, the years that I was there. And making shivs, making knives was an easy proposition to get done. And yeah, there were a lot of knives and shivs on the yard. And like I say, that anybody that came in that was a government informant, yeah, they wouldn't last very long. As a matter of fact, in any of the federal joints, Leavenworth, Marion, Atlanta, Terre Haute, when you come in there, you got a rough time. But today, they have PSIs, pre-sentence investigation reports, and inmates cannot have those in their possession. And the reason for that is because these PSI identify people who assisted the government. And when an inmate comes into a penitentiary today, they still get checked out by the other convicts in the joint. Everywhere I went, people would ask me, who are you? Where'd you come from? What'd you do? And so forth and so on. But they would want to know that if you have any friends and so forth who can vouch for you. And a lot of dudes that couldn't come up with the right answers were pressured to get off the compound. And they'd have to check into protective custody. And when they did that, the Bureau of Prisons would generally transfer them someplace else. But that's how it is today. How it was when I was in the joint back until the early 80s. The we controlled the stuff. Convicts controlled the data and the information. It's not like that today. They
So
don't allow.
Mac, I got a question here. This was obviously a mafia hit. The guy, Freddie Geese is his name, was a mob guy out of Massachusetts, not out of Boston like Whitey was, but Springfield, Massachusetts. Now, we all seen Goodfellas, and they depict the mobsters in the joint as kind of having their own little clique. They're all kind of being housed together and being able to get some extras and running little rackets like Henry Hill in that he was selling dope and he had the protection of these other Italian mafia guys. Would it still be like that today, that for this Freddie Geese down there in Hazleton, would the mob have certain sway that everybody would give them a lot of leeway?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That the Italians stick together, and in any joint you're in, Italians stick together and pretty much stay to themselves. But quite frankly, most of these Italian guys are good dudes. They're good convicts. And as far as Geese being with any mob, Whitey Bulger was, he'd be taken out by anybody. That if I was in a joint with him and he came in, pieces, knives, shivs would be raised to get him out of there. He was a high profile, and he had to go. He was 89 years old in a wheelchair. So what? Get in there and cut his throat, cut his head off, and make a point that turncoats, whenever they're found and can be gotten to, you take them out. That's a good something. Probably a good demonstration for what's going on in New York right now with El Chapo. That all those government informants that come against him, they got a problem, because he's got a long arm and a lot of money, and the rats that testify against him, this government cannot protect those rats. They can try, but forget about it. That those informants will be gotten to.
So,
Sure.
Martin, you're talking that when you were in the joint back in the 70s into the early 80s, the convicts were the guys running the record. So they already knew the guy was coming before he came through the gate. And, that seemed to be, that's a pretty powerful position that they couldn't figure out, like, well, I wonder why these guys keep getting hit. To the 1980s. Maybe they were doing this on purpose, but so if there's a PSI report that comes in, and sure, the convicts don't get it, somebody gets that report, and it probably isn't just the warden. And you've been inside, you knew when people were coming before they got there, didn't you?
Pretty much so. That
and you weren't working in the records room.
In my time, that I never worked in records office, but convicts passed the information that this guy's no good. He collaborated with the authorities, and for whatever reason, reduced sentences and so forth, transferred or whatever. But yeah, we pretty much knew who was coming on the line. There were about 2,000 dudes at Leavenworth when I was there. 2,000 dudes in the compound. And we pretty much, convicts control that penitentiary. It's not like that today.
Did they hire more guards, like up into the 90s and 2000s? Did they hire a lot more guards and take a lot of those kind of inside jobs away from the inmates, or hire more civilian employees?
Absolutely. They hired more guards to handle those records. And today, in 2018, no convicts get those records. Those central file records. That doesn't happen.
So here's a question. I mean, so there is the information gets out somehow, without a doubt. Obviously, this guy, he comes in, Whitey Bulger. 12 hours later, there's the welcome wagon greeting him in his cell to beat him down and take him out. We talked with your friend from As the Key Turns, who was the guard over at Marion,
Yes,
and he kind of gave a kind of a walkthrough, if you will, of what it is from the guard's perspective of a transfer. And you said you've been transferred around. You may have had a little diesel therapy yourself. Can you talk about that in terms of going from Leavenworth to Marion, going from Marion down to Atlanta, and how they handled you, how you kind of came into the facilities, who was then you were passed to, and I mean, my real question is, did you walk in the facility and they already knew who you were when you got on the cell block?
When I first hit Leavenworth, my case was well known, and
Right.
I was checked out by the people in the joint, who you are, where you're from, what you do, and so forth and so on. And everybody knew that I was a solid dude. And I got there in, I think it was about March of 1973. And in a short time, there was a dude that was killed in the hospital at Leavenworth. And I think that happened on July the 25th or 26th of 1973. He was a convict. And when that happened, after that happened, people on the line said something needs to be done. And within a very short time, very fast, people in the machine shop, CMS, started producing weapons, shivs. And I think there was about probably 30 or 40 or 50 of these shivs, bone crushers, prepared. And on July the 31st, the Leavenworth riot was scheduled to kick off at 7:30, but nobody showed up in the chow hall. And it wasn't until 11:30 sharp that everybody in the chow hall stood up and ran out of the institution and took over the joint. But the institution knew that something was going to happen at that time. They had a lot of guards posted in front of the inmates in the chow hall, and yeah, it was a situation. But
Gary, do you remember this? This is kind of your era there, wouldn't it be? The Leavenworth riot?
I don't.
That might be an interesting topic just to have as a episode.
Yeah, I don't remember it at all.
Well, so when Martin was, so you come into Leavenworth, but you were sentenced, and there's a really classic photo of you coming down the hall, I guess, at the courtroom in St. Louis in handcuffs. I don't know if that was pre-sentencing, sentencing, but I mean, they took you out of the courtroom that day when you were convicted, and they, what would be that process? The bailiff takes you downstairs, and there was a marshal who kind of takes you into some sort of transfer.
yeah, they took me out of the courtroom back to the old county jail here in the city jail in St. Louis, and I was here for about 2 or 3 weeks, and then I was transferred to Leavenworth. I arrived at Leavenworth, I think it was in March of 1973, and when I went into my review before the lieutenants and captains, they asked me, what are we going to do with you? I was young, 28 years old, probably looked like I was about 18. In one of the newspaper articles of 1975, they said I was 31, but I looked about 18. Right out of.
That's true. I've seen the pictures of you. You did look young.
Yeah, but I told the.
We're gonna have to cut the video back and forth between the Skype and the Facebook Live of Martin, so people can, when do the interview, Gary, they can go back and watch it. We're recording the Skype, right? So we might be able to cut that back and forth.
So go ahead, Martin.
Sorry.
Yeah,
What happened?
I told the captain and the associate warden at Leavenworth that, yeah, you need to send me to the compound. I can handle myself. I'm quite capable about handling myself. In a penitentiary with 2,000 people, I'm coming in fresh meat.
Yeah, really.
They said,
put me in Gen Pop.
Yeah, put me in Gen Pop and I'll be fine. So about within 1 week, I was on the compound, and they asked me about my job, and I told them I was an experienced welder from the street, so they put me in the welding machine shop. So I was a welder right from Jump Street. I didn't go into the kitchen, and I did very well in the welding shop until about a year or so later, I got fired. The staff there figured I was making some weapons, making some pieces, bone crushers. But yeah, I worked there and had a good time.
Well, so then they pick you up and they move you to Marion, which, how did they kind of come to you in Leavenworth and say, hey, Martin, guess what? We're taking a trip.
Well, what happened is in 1975, I think it was June the 3rd, I think it was, but I was in segregation at the time. And I had been there for about a month or so, but one of the guards came in there, and there were three of them. It was a morning meal that they were serving, and one of the guards, his name was Punchy Meredith, Robert Meredith, I think his name was, but he was walking down on the flats. I was on the first tier, but he was on the flats, and he asked me when they were getting all done with the service. He said, "We have some extra orange juice. Would you like some extra orange juice, McNally?" And I said, "What you need to do is go take care of everybody else. Give them their orange juice, and if you got some left over, bring it." And Meredith said to the other guards that was with, loud enough for everybody to hear, he says, "Oh, we got to take care of that little snitch." And what he was talking about was all the publicity that I was bringing to the penitentiary for the brutality of the guards against the inmates in the penitentiary. And Harry Jones, you know him, he did some reporting of that issue, and yeah, the cops didn't like me at all. But what happened is that I went off and I knocked my food tray off the out of the food slot, and those three cops came up to the range and told the guy at the lockbox that was opening the doors. They said, "Open up." They gave him my cell number. Open up, open up. I was in the cell by myself. And so happens that I cut Punchy Meredith's in his cheek, and he needed about 13 stitches. And that began my long process of where they sent me down to Springfield, and they federally indicted me, and I went to court. While I was down in Springfield, they beat the shit out of me bad twice, and I was down there for 21 days. But they brought me back to Leavenworth, and I went to trial. I was acquitted on September the 18th, 1975, in Topeka, Kansas Federal Court. And the jury in that case deliberated for about 5 minutes. It was so fast, I couldn't believe it. The judge couldn't believe it. Judge Rogers, federal judge, he couldn't believe it. Nobody could believe it. I was shocked, startled. My attorney, Dan High, was shocked. But then within a matter of days, I was sent to, no, wait a minute. About two or 3 months later, I had another altercation with the staff, and they claimed that the eight guards were injured in the altercation. But it was, oh geez, I forget exactly when it was, but they sent me to Springfield for competency evaluation. The U.S. attorney at the time, Montiel Ballot, who is now a federal judge, or was, in Kansas, You may know him, Gary.
Yeah, I've heard that name. I never knew him, but I've heard the name.
Montiel Bella.
Bella?
Bella.
Montiel Bella. He was the assistant U.S. attorney, but he offered me to dismiss the charges and just transfer me to Marion. I refused. I said, this thing's got to go to trial, and I'm not going along with any dismissal. So what he did, he filed a motion to have me sent down to Springfield Medical Center for a competency evaluation. When that went into court, I objected, and I said, that's government intimidation. I'm competent, fully competent to handle this. Monty stood up in court and he said, the order has already been signed by Judge Oliver. As a matter of fact, Judge Oliver killed his wife and himself in Kansas not too many years later. Judge Oliver, federal judge, killed himself. But so I was sent down to Springfield, and they beat me up twice down there. Really, really fucked me up bad. And I filed a lawsuit on that. It took 6 or 7 years to go to court, and I finally lost it. But I wound up in Marion, and I was sent to the control unit in Marion, federal penitentiary in Illinois. And I was in the control unit for 7 months, and then I hit the yard in about, I think it was March of 1977, I think it was. And within a matter of months, I figured out how to escape from Marion, but it never materialized. But I figured that out, and that was in 1975. It wasn't until 1978 that the helicopter escape case went down. But I met Garrett Trapnell at Leavenworth, and he eventually wound up at Marion, and we got together, and with his knowledge and smarts, he was able to finagle scam Barbara Oswald to get a helicopter, and she wound up getting killed.
Interesting. Now, Mac, when you got Marion, you already had a reputation. I would imagine when you got out on the yard, they knew who you were, I would imagine.
Oh yeah. They knew who I was. Everybody knew me on the compound there, and Kenny Johnson was doing a bank robbery term, and very good convict. But everybody knew me at Marion, and I had no problems with the convicts.
So Mac, I have a question about when a guy like you, a white guy, I know all these prisons are usually broken down along racial lines, and then or some kind of affiliation on the outside, like the Italians. They all are going to group together because they're all kind of involved in and around the mafia. The Hispanics will all group together, and then they'll probably broken down into Colombians or Mexicans or whatever. And the blacks all stick with the blacks. Now, where does a white guy like you fit in?
I fit in with the whites.
Is there just like a separate kind of group of whites who are professional criminals but never really did things together on the outside?
Whites stick together, blacks stick together, and that's the way it was. You didn't cross the line.
Okay.
And
or the line crossed you.
And there was, what should I say? There was divisiveness between the races. That some of these people were racist, and they didn't like blacks at all, and there were a lot of killings there at Marion. A lot of people lost their life. One guy, Charles Stewart, was a tough guy. He raped 2 dudes in Leavenworth, and he was sent to Marion's control unit. And it took a couple of months to set it up to have him killed, have him slaughtered, and he was killed in front of my cell. I think it was on October the 1st of 1980. I think it was 1980, could have been 1979, but he was slaughtered by Clay Fountain, who had killed a couple of guards in 1983, I think it was, on October the 22nd. But he was hit about 80 times in front of my cell. There was blood all over the place. But Charles Stewart was 33, and yeah, he was taken out and killed. I think the U.S. attorney wanted to indict me in that case too, but they didn't have the evidence, and
Yeah.
I really didn't do anything. I didn't kill him, and didn't participate, and I wouldn't admit to it anyway if whatever I did. But yeah, he got killed in front of myself. That was just one
Working in the
case.
welding shop.
There was another case where Cadillac Smith was killed. I think it was in May of 1982. When I got the word on that, I left oh God, I left the control unit and went into F block. And when I heard at about 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock in the morning that Cadillac Smith was killed, he was a DC leader of the DC crew, blacks. I said, "Oh shit, there's going to be some ramifications about that," because he was well respected. But Tommy Silverstein and Clay Fountain had gotten him on one of the ranges and pretty much just about cut off his head and dragged him down the range. And yeah, he was gone. But within a very short time, word circulated throughout the system, and white dudes were attacked and killed at Lewisburg, and a lot of dudes were hit at Leavenworth in Atlanta, a lot of white dudes. But yeah, that all because of Cadillac Smith being killed. That was just another case. Getting back,
A guy like you, Mac, I would imagine you could navigate between those prison gangs and get along with everybody and have some kind of connections in all the different groups, like the Aryan Brotherhood or the blacks or Hispanics, because I know that you helped a lot of people with their appeals.
yes, I did. I did a lot of legal work. As far as the AB goes, the Emmy, the Mexican Mafia, and blacks. I got along pretty well with them. As a matter of fact, I think it was in 19 after Charles Stewart was killed. John Greshner, who was a AB member, he came to me in the control unit, and that was the same time that Barry Mills and Tommy Silverstein and a lot of the other ABs were in the control unit. But he came to my cell and asked me what I think about the Aryan Brotherhood. And I know what he was getting at. And what I told him was the AB is a decent organization, but it's not for me. I would never tip up and join them because I'm like an eagle in the sky. They fly alone, and I said I never take orders from anybody. But if something needs to be done and I'm approached about it and I agree with it, yeah, I can come in and help out. So
You used a term there. What did you say? Tip up?
yeah, tip up is to join one of the groups. Yeah.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I'd not heard of that before. Interesting.
Yeah.
And there was a term you used as well, which was the range where that happened. I'm not sure what that just to clarify for people what that means when you say the range.
What the range means is that in H unit at the time, every block in the penitentiary have four ranges. You got A range, B range, C range.
Oh, okay, like the cell number range. Or
Yeah, it's
okay.
had 8 cells in each range.
Maybe seems naive, but I haven't really been to jail except to interview people. So and a DUI, which I beat. But, and you were a jailhouse attorney, which everyone needs one of those guys. And obviously you had some real experience defending yourself. And you told in the interview that we did, I think if it made it into the interview, how you got some of these expensive legal books while you were there. And,
Oh yeah, that was in the interview.
If you go back and listen to that, folks, if you're watching on Facebook Live, you listen to this as a recorded podcast episode of Gangland Wire, you might want to go back and listen to Martin talk about how he went to school, so to speak, to become a jailhouse attorney.
Now, you guys, if on Facebook, if you have not listened to our 7-part series with Martin J. McNally, the Skyjacker, you need to go back and listen to it. It is one amazing piece of work.
You need to listen to it. As far as being a jailhouse lawyer, when I got my sentence out of St. Louis, and I worked on the appeal, and when I got the order from the 8th Circuit Court of Appeals, I was at Leavenworth, and I just threw it up in the air, and I says, "Fuck this! This is the goddamn shame. I got to do something else to take care of this." And within a couple of weeks, I figured out how to beat Leavenworth. I won't go into all the details about how to beat that joint, but yeah, I figured it out, and it never materialized because I couldn't come up with convicts who were interested in taking some hostages, or just gaffling up a couple of guards and tying them up and going through one of the windows in one of the dorms. But
well, I can imagine that would be difficult to kind of rally people around you when there's guards in towers with high-powered rifles. It's really it's a discouragement, I'm sure.
But I bought thousands of dollars worth of law books. I got them from West Publishing Company, Little Brown and Company, and other companies' law books. And I had law books, but I used those law books to educate myself on law, and it was very educational to do that. And I become a jailhouse lawyer. And during my time in the prisons, I helped a lot of people. One particular big case was Robert Ramirez. He was charged with two other people for killing somebody at Marion with a hot shot, a heroin high-powered injection. And he went on trial, and one of the dudes, Kiko Mercado, was one of the rats, one of the defendants that turned rat, and he severed and had his own trial. But the two guys that went on trial were Bobby Ramirez, and they call him Black Bobby, and his co-defendant. They were both acquitted. I testified for about 45 minutes. And the U.S. Attorney prosecuting, Marsha Johnson, Assistant U.S. Attorney, she was shocked about my testimony. But yeah, everything I had to say was pretty much fabricated and false testimony, perjury, if you will.
Well, let me ask you this, because I don't want to, I don't want to put you in any compromising position with the question or a Facebook Live or recording. But when, just for example, when you were there and Charles Stewart was killed, and you're standing there, and in Clay Fountain, one of the guys that does it, your inaction is certainly understandable, that if you're behind bars or whatever. But the what I'm kind of curious from your perspective, standing there, is how fast did the guards show up? And it's like, this guy, just if they got stabbed that many times, how long? Where are these guys at? Like, where aren't they doing their job? Literally in a matter of minutes, the guy's dead, and then they show up.
Within a matter of minutes, there were about probably 10 to 15 correctional officers at the front of the rec cage. The rec cage. And the rec cage is right in front of the cells. Now, the cells are all locked, except for the people who are on the range. And that was Clay Fountain, Larry Colomb, and Charles Stewart. And I was the rec partner with Clay and Larry, and I signed off so that Stewart could get on the rec cage, on the rec group with him. I signed off on Sunday, and on Monday they came around with that piece of paper and said, "Did you sign this?" And I said, "Yes." They always checked to make sure the particular inmate had actually signed the sheet, the rec sheet. And I said, "Yes." So Stewart told him, yeah, he signed to get on the rec with those two dudes. Now that was on a Monday, and I think it was October the 1st of 1979. And within a matter of minutes, the cop opened the door, opened all three doors, and Larry and Clay was leading the way, but he walked by my cell. He looked in my cell. My light was off, and he told me, "Yeah, don't say anything." So what they did, they went into Stewart's cell, and Larry went in first, and he stabbed him in his chest. And when Stewart grabbed his arm, Clay came in and started stabbing him too. But he was able to get out of the cell onto the range. And at that particular time there, now the guard at the lockbox, he's seeing all this because he's up there. Just open the doors, and boom, these guys come out and start going into the cell and start stabbing them. So immediately he would kick the deuces. They have this transmitter on their side that they carry, and he just press the button, and when the deuces go off, it goes to the control center, and the control center knows that something's up in H unit, and immediately alerts all the staff to go to H unit. Now, they had probably, like I say, 10 or 15 guards at the front of the rec cage. Stewart ran up to the cage, and he told him, "Open the door, get me out of here, get me out of here." And the guards told him, "Run to the back of the range because we can't open this door." And they did the right thing. Clay told him as Stewart was running, he says, "Don't open that door, you open that door, and I'm going to start stabbing you people." So for the next 4 or 5 minutes, they chased Stewart up and down the range. He was running up and down the range, and they stabbed him in his back and stabbed him in his side, his chest, and right in front of my cell, about 10 feet in front of my cell, they stopped him, and that's where they took him down. They stabbed him in his skull. Every time this shiv went into his skull, it snapped like a snap, 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 snap. And yeah, it was nice. It was nice to see that happen because everybody knew his history at Leavenworth and what he had done at Leavenworth. He was a raper. He was a cell knocker, stealing stuff out of people's cells and everything. But yeah, he died at age 33. No loss. But that was
the story.
And the guards didn't open up the gate. They're like, "No, I'm not going to give him shit at all for this guy." And here's Martin going, "What are you going to do?" You're like, you're at that point. No one's cells open up, and what's really weird is you would think Charles Stewart would go, "Well, wait, why am I going out on the range, or why am I going into the rec yard with these two other dudes that he apparently didn't think anything was going to happen?"
No, he didn't think anything was going to happen. He thought
they're like, because I don't know, how do you communicate? There must be some other levels of communication between the cells on the range. If you're locked in, you're still able to kind of go like, "Well, hey, ask for rec on Thursday at 1, and I'll ask for rec on Thursday at 1.
No, well, it wouldn't work like that. You had rec groups, and it was either rec by yourself or have a rec partner or have up to 3 rec partners on your group.
I'm curious, just because I don't have any idea for how that would work, if you got to sign up or.
You have to sign up.
You would time.
You have to sign up and agree to get on the rec group. That's all.
Interesting.
Man.
So what was Atlanta like? Let's do one last topic here, and then we'll let you get on. We've been on here almost an hour now, and another Facebook Live ran my phone down. But so what was Atlanta like? Describe that for the people a little bit there, Mac.
Yes, Atlanta. That's another case altogether. I got to Atlanta. I think it was. Let me see. 90. God, when was it? I can't even remember when I got to Atlanta, but they put me in segregation, maximum security, of course. And the first week there, I went before the captain, and the captain happened to be Thomas Cohane Jr. Thomas Cohane Jr. His father was a warden at Leavenworth. His uncle was the warden at Terre Haute Penitentiary. And I never met his uncle, but I knew his father, Thomas Cohane Sr. Yeah, he was at Leavenworth in 1975, I think it was. But so what happened here is that I'm talking to this Cohane Jr. And I mentioned, I says, I know your father. And so we talked for a little bit, and he asked me how much time have you done. I think I said 25 years. And he said, that's a long time, 25 years. So I said, well, yeah, okay. And I said, what are we going to do? Let's get me to the compound here. So he said, well, what we're going to have to do is wait until we get your central file, your records. They didn't have my central file at the time. All they had was a brief rundown of who I am and what I did and so forth. But when they did get my central file 2 weeks later, they had me in the office there, and with Cohane, captain, and there was a lieutenant there by the name of Cartret, I think his name was, Lieutenant Cartret. And Cohane said, well, we're going to have to keep you in segregation until we see how your performance is, how your behavior is, maintain yourself, and so forth. So I did this. I maintained myself. Months went by. Every month I'd go before the captain again for a captain's review, and I'd ask him, let's get me to the compound. They said, well, we have to see how your behavior is and so forth. So I'm telling you, Gary, that for 3 years this shit went down. 3 years, and I got fed up with it, and I finally told him, no more. I'm not going to go along with this. It's coming to a halt, and I'm going to start. My behavior is going to change. So what happened is that within a short time, a very short time, Thomas Cohane called me into the office there, and he said, Mac, we're transferring you. And I said, well, yeah, that's fine, because you haven't let me on the compound here. And I wanted to go on the compound. Here's what Cartret told me, Lieutenant Cartret. He told me one time, he says, Mac, he says, I would be devastated if you got to the compound and attacked one of my staff. And it's just too, the possibilities are too high because of your record. You've attacked guards before and hurt them. And I said, well, I have no intentions of attacking anybody in this penitentiary. I'm telling you. He said, well, we can't take the chance. So then Coach Cohane said he's going to transfer me, and I'm going to go to get out of here, my cat. Get out, go. So I told Cohane told me, he says, you're going to Terre Haute. And I said, no way, you can't put me in Terre Haute. I tried to cut the throat of Officer Porter in Terre Haute a couple of years back. And I said, Terre Haute is no good because they'll lock me down. They won't put me on the compound at all and so forth. So Cohen told me, says, listen, you're going to Terre Haute and just don't tell anybody there what you did, what your history is. So,
That's in your history.
so I'm telling you, I got to, I was transferred to Terre Haute and I got there and I was there for about less than a week in the segregation. And when the lieutenant came in one time, he asked me a bunch of questions. Have I ever testified for the government? Ever helped the government? No, 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 and all those questions. And his last question was, oh, there's one other question. Have you ever attacked staff? And I told him, I says, oh, heavens, no, I have no intention of ever attacking any staff. I didn't tell him again. I didn't use the word again. Because if I'd use the word again, he'd say, well, what do you mean again? And if he knew that if this lieutenant knew that I had attacked Officer Porter, I tried to kill him, I would have never hit the compound there, and they kept me in diesel therapy and so forth and so on. And yeah, heck with that. So that's what happened. How I got to Terre Haute and what happened to Atlanta. I was in Atlanta for about 3 years.
And all in solitary, all in segregation in Atlanta.
Maximum security segregation.
Wow.
And I didn't like that at all. It's screwed up. It does things to your brain, being locked up. But
I've heard that.
all in all, I did 19 and a half years at Marion. And I did the most time of any convict at that penitentiary. And
how long were you at Terre Haute then before they got you out of there?
I was at Terre Haute, let me see. God, I think about 2 or 3 years. I went to parole. I went to parole hearing there one time, and my case manager told me, he says, you got to do more for yourself. You got to take some classes and courses to show the parole board that you're improving. And that was after I was denied parole. So I started taking classes at Terre Haute. And eventually they transferred me to Atwater Penitentiary in Atwater, California. And I was there for about maybe 2 years, 2.5 years. And that's where I went to parole. I had a parole hearing in July of 1970, when was that? 2008, 2009. I had a parole hearing in 2009 in July. It so happens that in June, I told my case manager that I'm waiving my parole hearing and I'm not going to parole ever again. And I signed a waiver paper for that. And so happens he went on vacation and he didn't submit that waiver paper. And on the I think it was the 18th of July, 2009, that a dude came to me and told me I'm on the call list for a parole hearing in the morning. And I said, no way, I signed a waiver. And I looked at the board, and sure enough, I had a parole hearing about 10 o'clock in the morning. And when I went to that hearing, the Bureau of Prison Staff, there was a dude and a woman, female. They didn't know me at all. They didn't know what my history was. And I told the guy, I told the dude, I says, I waived this hearing. He says, don't say anything about it. Do the hearing. So it was done with a video from Chevy Chase, Maryland. And it lasted about 30 minutes. But this guy asked me all the questions and everything. I told him, I says, I'm still of sound mind. I don't have any drugs. I don't do drugs. I never joined any gangs. I don't have any tattoos. And I can function in civil ordered society. So he left the camera and left the screen for about 10 minutes and came back and it says, I'm going to recommend you for parole. But I'm telling you, this recommendation has to go to the full commission because you're in an original conviction case, original jurisdiction with the board. It took the whole board to approve my release on parole. And I didn't get that notice for about 30 days later. When that came in, I had to submit I had to submit a parole plan for release. I did that. I wanted to go to Savannah, Tennessee. I had a good friend there and know a lot of people in Savannah, and yeah, I wanted to go there, but they investigated it and came back and said, "No way in hell are you going to Tennessee." So I wrote the people in Tennessee and I said, "Listen, I got a lot of money, and I can get an apartment, or I can buy property or anything." I got no response from them, so I had to prepare another parole plan. And I said, "Well, okay, send me to St. Louis because that's where I was convicted." I wasn't going to go back to Michigan because I cut loose all my entire family over some lot of money involved with the handling the estate of my parents. So the move to St. Louis was approved, and I had no intentions of staying in St. Louis. I figured it would last a couple of weeks or so, but I got here and I got situated, and I met some people at one of the churches here that helps convicts, people that released from prison. And I got situated, and I stayed here. But my original intentions was to pick up some pieces, some weapons, and go get one or two bank vaults and on the land. But that never happened, and I'm doing well now, and I have all the money I want, all the money I need, and that's the way it is. I'm out here on Civil Order Society. I've been out here since January the 27th of 2010.
Well, Mac, we're glad that you did not get hold of those guns and go rob those banks, because I got a feeling you would be right back up there in Marion or Leavenworth or somewhere else, and we would have never met you. So we are glad that didn't happen.
Gary, I would have been dead because I wasn't going back to prison. I would have had a shootout.
So
If you got all the money you need,
I would have killed myself rather than go back to prison.
yeah,
there's got to be another place you can get some excitement out of life. You know
Really?
what I mean, if you've got your bills paid and you don't need any food or anything, you're not saving, trying to take care of your kids by stealing and robbing banks. Just the excitement, you know. People are going to hear this story. And
Yeah.
they're going to come back and they're going to listen to the 7 parts where we interviewed you, and it's just such a roller coaster ride, Martin. I mean, it's just an incredible made-for-TV movie.
Really?
It's your life. And then, you know, the fact of the matter is that's just one part of it. And here we are talking about this other part, which is another whole other, you know, experience that you had. And now you're out. And when you got out and you were paroled out and you were in St. Louis, part of that whole parole plan is that you had to stay there. And you didn't know, you had a lifetime parole sentence, as I recall, when we sat down with you in 2016. But you were still up to possibly get that parole removed.
I never tried to get the parole removed, but I signed papers. I don't know what it was all about, but there was I had the parole hearing here in St. Louis, and when I went to that, the examiner he flew in from Chevy Chase, but he asked my parole officer here. He said, "What do you have to say?" And he told him, he says, "Keep him on parole because of the nature of the case." Well, they didn't accept his recommendation. And a couple of months later, I got a notice that I'm being released from parole. So this life parole, I was released from parole. I'm no longer on parole, and I can go any place in the world. And I never expected to get off parole. I never thought they would let me off, but they did. As a matter of fact, on the movies and stuff, there's an LA company right now that wants to do an 8 hour, 10 hour movie, a full length movie for Netflix and what is it?
Showtime.
Yeah, Showtime. Netflix and Showtime, and we're in the initial stages of that. But the life story in the case is being shopped to the scriptwriters right now. Danny was recently contacted by some people in LA to do scriptwriters that want to get off into this, and he's got an agreement with them. But yeah, there are people who are interested in doing the life story. It's an interesting story.
It's a great story. It is a great one, Mac. So
roller coaster.
it's a roller coaster.
The thing is, the road's really not over. I mean,
Yeah, it's not over.
Here you are. They're going to have a red carpet event, and you're going to get to be there because you're not on parole anymore.
I told the people in LA that if they want me to strap up a parachute and
Jump out of a plane for the
10,000 feet at 300 miles an hour at night, which is very dangerous. I said, "Yeah, I'm up to it. I can handle it."
All right, Mac, I got you could have extra work as a stuntman when they do the reenactment of your actual time. You could go up in an airplane and they could be the stunt double, and you could get the parachute and then crawl down that ladder and let go.
It sounds like
blowing out there, the audio on this side.
Really?
I think what he needs maybe is like Mac. What you need on your microphone there might be like Gary. He pops his peas.
Yeah.
And it kind of distorts when he pops these. He's talking about crime and cops and popping his peas, and so we put this little pop filter in front of his mic, and that really seems to help. But you got his whole great story, and certainly the story that now they're going to be doing another one about when you and Brock Trapnell tried to break out of Marion, which is its own other story, which is part of the roller coaster that you told us. And this is more really great stuff. If you're listening on Gangland Wire, there's you want to go back and also search out the interview that Gary and I did with the I want to say it was David, as I recall from the interview, from As the Key Turns,
right,
where David basically talked about his time as a prison guard at Marion and his interactions and kind of his take on Martin J. McNally, or as he likes to be called, Mac.
All right, Mac. I think we've pretty well done this. We appreciate it, and I'll let you know. You follow the podcast, so you'll know when it comes out. You get the email, I would assume.
Where you get on the fly, and you see
as the key turns, he knew me, and you'd have to hear what he had to say. But he said I was one of the smartest convicts that he met.
He did.
Marion, and I didn't care to disclose. I disclosed the things to him, and we got along good.
Yeah, for a guard, he had a certain grudging respect for you as a man back. It was really interesting to hear his take on his relationship with you and what you were like in the penitentiary from his viewpoint. And he was a pretty squared away dude. He was not one of these dudes that was brutal and all that.
He was a good CO.
Yeah.
The Bureau of Prisons lawyers, authorities didn't like him. They didn't like him.
Yeah, I could tell that he did not get along with upper management. He was one of those kind of dudes too. All right.
It's been good talking to you, Gary, Aaron, and
All right.
you guys
Back.
take care of yourself, and you're doing good work.
All right,
Thank
Mike,
you.
Thank you. Thank you so
Talk,
much.
talk to you later.
All
Have a
right.
Good night.
Bye, Mac.
Check that out on the Facebook Live. At least there's an hour worth of live streaming video. I don't know if you ever got to look over there and see any of the comments that folks made, or if that replays, if you go back and watch it, maybe when the different Gangland wiretappers join into that Facebook Live and they chat in their questions and stuff. It'd be
I'll have to check Facebook.
All right. You do that. All right. Good night, Mac.
Okay, good night.